Roll humps to all my fighting camels worldwide. I'm your quarterback, Hodge Malik Williams, and you're listening to the Orange and Black Podcast.
What's up, everyone? Welcome into another edition of the Orange and Black Podcast. This episode is brought to you by the Cake and Camel Grill, located at 174 North McKinley Street in downtown Coach, right up the road from campus. You can come over to the Cake and Camel Grill to enjoy their award-winning wings and burgers before or after any Campbell home game. Dylan, how you doing today, man?
Wish I was better. Yeah, Saturday was a mixture of a lot of things. I had to go back and watch this game. It was pretty painful to watch. I wanted to delete my Flow subscription, but nevertheless, I think it's an interesting game to get into. I think we'll have a lot of talking points, especially for this game and this whole entire weekend in the college football land. And it's very, very interesting, and we'll jump right into it.
Yep, it was a rough week for the Camels, who were knocked off by Elon over the weekend at home. Campbell dropped that game 28-24. It was a case where Campbell got down early, made a late comeback, but could not prevail at the end, similar to the last time these two teams met at Barker Lane Stadium. But it was just another case of Campbell. They had chances to get off the field, and then you have penalties that jump in, or, you allow a couple big plays, and Campbell was able to make that effort at the end, like I talked about, but just not able to pull it out at the end. Dylan, what did you see from the Camels on Saturday?
That run defense needs a lot of work. Jalen Hampton kind of just ran through this defense completely. We kind of knew, I kind of previewed it coming in, that he could be an issue. He wasn't as big of an issue in previous games before this Campbell game, and he kind of exploded on the scene with this Campbell game. Second quarter, just 3 rushing touchdowns by himself, adding a fourth later on the third. Like you said, we kind of came back and made it interesting. It was just kind of too little, too late. So the run defense needs a lot of work, and like you said, the penalties, 10 penalties for 82 yards. It's a little unacceptable. That's not going to keep you in most games. So if we can clean the penalties up and the run defense, I mean, I don't know. We have a great pass defense. Corners are working really well. Elon was going to be a team that was going to rely on the run more than the pass. But the run defense that showed to be kind of poor in this game. So we could clean that up. We'll be within the hunt for one of the top positions in the CAA. But if we don't clean that up, it could get really bad, really ugly. Starting next week with NC Central, and as we kind of work towards the back half of the season.
Yeah, Campbell was able to come out and get an early 3-0 lead. They took that 3-0 lead into the second quarter, but then from there, Elon scored 21 unanswered to take a 21-3 lead into the half. Campbell was able to come out early in the second half and get a touchdown to respond and try to tighten the game, but Elon immediately answered again with another rushing touchdown. Like you said, the Elon rushing attack just scorched the defense all game. Campbell was able to bring it back to within 10, 28-18, followed it up with another touchdown to tie it up with 4 minutes and 27 seconds left to make it 28-24. Campbell had a chance at the end to drive down the field and score a game-winning touchdown. They had to get a touchdown following a missed extra point on their previous drive, and Campbell was just not able to punch it in at the end. But like we alluded to, the Elon rushing attack was too much for the defense to handle. That is something that is going to have to be tuned up for this weekend as Campbell heads to North Carolina Central for a big matchup against a ranked team. And then Campbell was just not able to punch it in at the end. Another game where we've seen this season where when Campbell can start hot, they're really good. But whenever they don't do that, it can kind of linger and carry on and kind of come back to bite them at the end of the game. But Dylan, what did you see from the offense? You scored 24 points. It's, kind of going back to almost like the William and Mary game, like you had some good moments, but you just weren't clicking on all cylinders the whole game. This team before entering the matchup was averaging 41 points per game. That was top 10 in the country. And in this game, you only get 24 points. So what did you see on the offensive side of the ball?
I saw Hodge Malik get sacked a bunch of times. 7 sacks for Hodge Malik. You could be a mixture in terms of if we're going to point fingers, but Hodge Malik should not be going down 7 times, especially with the offensive line. Mike Edwards, a bunch of guys who were touted as CA honorable mentions at the beginning of the season. Hodge Malik should not be going down 7 times. That just makes his life harder. It makes the offensive life harder when they're in these long situations where it's second and you're behind the sticks playing. That's just not fun. But it's good to see VJ Wilkins. VJ Wilkins has been the bright spot for Campbell. CAA freshman of the week again. 10 receptions, 114 yards, and a TD. He did really, really well. And he's been a bright spot for this Campbell offensive attack. It seems like him and Hodge Malik have that great connection, and I'm expecting a lot more. And if he keeps on this pace, we'll be looking at some freshman records and maybe some Campbell records kind of falling within the wayside. But it's great to see VJ being that bright spot. Rushing attack, it's the tale of the two tapes. You either get the really good rushing attack or you get the really fall by the wayside rushing attack. So the rushing wasn't there, but great to see VJ Wilkins kind of step up for the passing attack and becoming that top target for Hodge Malik when he's looking down the field, trying to find someone in the passing attack.
Yeah, VJ it came out this week that based on PFF, which is Pro Football Focus, who grades out every game in college football every week, very prevalent at the FBS level. But they put out he is the highest graded FCS wide receiver on Pro Football Focus, which for a freshman is, that's pretty impressive. But you look, that speaks to the offensive attack and the passing attack that the Camels have on offense. But you look on the other side of the offensive scheme, Campbell only had 35 rushing yards in this game. So you're able to give it to VJ and some of your other guys from Hodge Malik Williams. But when you're not able to balance out your offense, that's where you can kind of see that dip. And I think that's what we saw this week. In previous weeks, last week, you had a big rushing attack that made a big difference. But whenever you're not able to be balanced, then you're going to be passing the ball, and then that leads to those 7 sacks. So it's kind of when the ball starts rolling down in the wrong direction, it just keeps going, and you just got to have some balance and just be able to have that potent offense that we've seen. And obviously your defense needs to step up a little bit on that side of the ball. Talking about the defense, Dylan, another great game from Moncovia Gaffney and CJ Tillman that are kind of the staples of this defense. But this defense is still getting gashed from the run game, and it just kind of piles on. And when your offense feels like they have to go out and score, so much, that can kind of take a toll on them as well. What did you see on the defensive side of the ball? You touched on the run game earlier, but overall, what did you see?
Great to see Moncovia Gaffney fill out the stat sheet. 10 tackles, a TFL, a forced fumble, interception. I'm pretty sure there's more statistics that he had on the day. So he was a stat filler for the Campbells on defense. And like you said, CJ Tillman in there as well, 8 tackles, 2 TFLs, and a forced fumble for him as well. We had 5 players with at least a half a TFL. So that's good to see, but I think it comes down to the rushing defense. And it was kind of interesting to see, like, you knew Matthew Downing wasn't going to be the guy that was going to break this defense. It was probably going to be the rushing. Matthew Downing, probably he's not going to be the guy that's going to gas you. It's going to be the run, and so it was very confusing that the run was the killer for this game. So it kind of scratching your head and asking, what are we doing? And like you said, like, we only had 35 rushing yards. So but overall the defense, good to see Monkovi Gaffney stepping up, being one of those top leaders, and along with CJ Tillman going out there and being the stat stuffers for this defense, and other people attributing, that's always good to see. So just the run defense was very, very questionable for this, and I think would have been an easy and winnable game if we just kept Jalen Hampton quiet and were able to perform like we could have.
Yep. Frustrating for sure on the defensive side of the ball, but still, Elon was averaging around 24 points coming into the game. The defense holds them to 28. And with how potent the Campbell offense has been, normally that would be perfectly fine and it's not even a problem. But like we talked about, whenever you don't have that balanced attack, it can kind of stymie your offense. And that's something that this offense and the defense, kind of a gut check for the whole team. They need to kind of regroup this week and, attack this North Carolina Central team who enters Saturday's matchup in Durham, ranked number 13 in the nation. That's the highest ranking for their program ever. Going into last week, Campbell was on the edge of the top 25 following the loss. You're going to drop out of that and not be receiving votes anymore. So Campbell with a chance to get on track against a good team, to make another statement nationally and kind of get back in that national conversation. So we'll see how that goes on Saturday. Speaking of Saturday, Dylan, what do you see from this North Carolina Central team? Very talented, very fast. This is going to be a tough environment to play in, but it should be a fun one. Yeah,
this is going to be definitely a fun one. I mean, they're just kind of overall base looking at them. They're 3-1 the season. The lone loss coming to UCLA at UCLA. Obviously, that's going to be hard for any team to go to Los Angeles and beat the Bruins, ranked 24th at the time. So, hats off to them for going down there. I think UCLA was supposed to play Michigan, I believe, or they're supposed to play a top team, and that unfortunately didn't come true. And NC Central was not afraid to go play UCLA. And then this past weekend they were playing Mississippi Valley State at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indy, which is a football stadium for the Colts. So 2 back-to-back games where they've been into the big time stages, and one not going their way and one definitely going their way. So they average 32 points per game. They've been in around that area throughout the whole entire season. They're mixed in terms of rushing attack, so rushing attack and passing attack. So they have 158 yards per game rushing and 202 yards passing per game. So they're even keel in terms of what you're going to see from this NC Central team. But QB led by Walker Harris has 418 yards this season, 5 touchdowns with a 65% complete percentage. So that's pretty good. he darts his targets every single time, and he's quick getting the ball out. And then you kind of look, their main guy, the guy that we'll have to be watching out for is Latrell Colliard, who's their main running back and also has been in the passing game as well. Has rushed for 290 yards this season with 3 touchdowns, and he has 114 yards in the air with a TD. So he's going to be that mixed attack, come out of the backfield, but also can pound it in as well. And they have a 2-headed attack rushing wise. Davius Richard also has 3 touchdowns as well. And they have some other wide receivers who have at least a touchdown or 2. So it's going to be good to see what kind of offense that they throw at the Camels defense. I think looking at it and looking at Latrell Colliard, you're going to see a lot of him and a lot of that rushing attack. And if we're able to stop the rushing attack, he still can catch balls out of the backfield. And that makes 4 wide receivers, including him, who can catch balls out of the backfield or in the slot or in the outside. So Walker Harris has a lot of targets to look forward against this Campbell defense. So I think you're looking at a William and Mary scenario where it's just a lot of guys out on the field, a lot of different targets that you have to identify. And it starts with Walker Harris. On the defensive side, they have a lot of defensive players with a bunch of tackles, but it's led by Jaden Flaker. He's got 24 tackles on the year, 4.5 TFLs, and then 3.5 sacks with an interception and forced fumble. He's going to be your lead on your defense, and then they have a guy on the inside, and Kendrick DeJour. He's got 12 tackles, but the mind-boggling stat: 5.5 TFLs and 3 sacks already this year. And that's good to see when you're playing these really tough teams out there, like they have with UCLA and a couple other teams that they face. So you're gonna be looking out for them on defense, but the offense is gonna lead NC Central. So I think, like we wanted for the Elon game, we wanted the Campbell to start hot, and if they can get the ball rolling, and NC Central is playing from behind, that's going to be better for the Camels. But if we let NC Central go, it's going to be hard once Latrell Colliard is just pounding it down our throat. So this NC Central team is for real, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens in Durham.
Yep, we'll see what happens on Saturday. Central with games against Winston-Salem State. They have obviously the game at UCLA. You expect a loss there normally from an FCS program. And then they played a Mississippi Valley State team that historically has not been good. So when you look at it for the Central team, it could be an early season test for them as well against a FCS opponent that is more on their level. And we'll see how the Camels stack up to that on Saturday. Campbell has already been tested early with their season opener against William and Mary. Last week, Elon, a very good team who contends in the CAA annually. So we'll see how both of these teams respond on Saturday whenever Campbell travels to Durham to take on Central. That game is at 4:00, and you can catch it on ESPN+. You can also head down to the game. It's obviously close to campus, and go see the Camels for yourself. But we will see how the Camels respond this week. Looking ahead at the Camels schedule, just kind of talking about how big this game is to get back on track. Campbell then heads back in the CAA play on October 7th at Hampton before playing Maine, who has struggled this year. And then they head to Richmond for a huge matchup on October 28th. So, Dylan, you look at this as a ranked matchup. It's not a conference matchup, but you're facing a ranked team on the road coming off of a close loss, and you want to get back into the national conversation. How big is this game, despite it not being a CAA game, and to kind of get your mojo back and get going back in the right direction before you head back in the CAA play So really kind of into the meat of your schedule.
Yeah, like you said, it's the we want to get back into the national conversation. And kind of looking at the CEA schedule just to bring that back in. There's going to be a lot of big games going on in the CEA that are not going to have our name on it, but is going to be truth telling about what it's going to look like in the CEA coming up. I mean, you still have your William and Mary right there at the top of the leaderboard. And then you had Delaware, who you're going to be playing later on this year, and then Elon right up there. And then some others kind of right behind it. So if Campbell wants to stay relevant in the CAA, they better hope for some good weekends. But I think this is a get right game for the Campbells and to get them back into that conversation, because you're facing a ranked team. And you're going to their house. So if we can knock on the door and make a scene and make it a Campbell clash and come back with a win from Durham, I think it puts you right back into that conversation where I don't think you're going to get top 25 votes, but I think you'll be right into that conversation where it kind of leads into the rest of the schedule, where you're playing teams like Delaware, you're playing teams like Maine, who's kind of struggling this year, and the rest of the teams that you're playing down the road. I think hopefully they can get it into the get right state, get that mojo back and flowing. So we kind of start having our eyes drift towards Chapel Hill late into the season, and if they're in the right mojo where they were last week and where they were against the Citadel, if we can get that Campbell coming back, I think that talk gets a little bit louder. If you get against Central and against these other teams that Campbell should be beating. So it's gonna be interesting to see. And I mean, even if we make it a close game, I think that will put eyes on it too. Because I mean, NC Central is a very good team. NC A&T played them, lost 30-16, but I think it's one of those games where, like you said, NC Central, they're playing somebody like more on their level with Campbell, so it's going to be their first true test of the year. So I think this is going to be a great game to watch if you still have that ESPN Plus subscription handy.
Yeah, Campbell sits 1-2 in CAA play, but the CAA is still wide open. It's still early in the season. One beautiful thing about CAA play is it is not like playing in the Big South where you only have 4 or 5 league games because you only have 6 to 8 teams in the league. It is a large league, so you get a lot of chance to really test where you stand. William and Mary sits atop the conference at 2-0, but last week their top running back, Bronson Yoder, who scorched the Camels on opening night, went down with an injury. He was carted off the field. So that's something to keep an eye on. And then Campbell has future matchups with Delaware, along with Richmond, and among others, along with some winnable games in there, like Hampton and NCA&T, among others. So the league is still wide open. And when you look at the CAA and how strong they are nationally, last year they got multiple teams into the playoffs. So if Campbell can continue to fight and continue to work their way, get right as they head back into conference play, that'll be huge. And that'll all start on Saturday against a ranked North Carolina Central team who is ranked as high as 13 in the nation. Dylan, you want to jump into some of our other sports? Volleyball had a pretty solid week.
Yeah, the volleyball had a great week. They swept William and Mary at home. So if you were there, you saw a great contest. They swept them in the first game, and then it was a very tense 5-setter on for game 2. So and took the dub, and I think It puts them right on top of the conference really, really quickly. It puts them tied with second, 3-1 in the conference. So jumps them right up top to the conference. So I think Coach Corral is kind of grinning because she put these ladies under pressure early. And it's still early, but what they're producing early is great wins against William and Mary, putting them right in the top of the conference. So it's good to see. The ladies the volleyball team getting the sweep, puts them 6-8 in the year and second in conference. So and they got a very interesting matchup against top of the conference UNC Wilmington. So coming up, so right off the bat, tough test and kind of the benchmark for the Campbells in terms of where they're going to rank in terms of CAA volleyball. So very interesting to see what they do moving forward and this weekend with a big matchup against UNCW. Moving on, so you got men's golf was at the VCU shootout. They team finished 13th place with Eric Johansson, top Camel with a -6, tied for 21st. So congratulations to him and those guys. Just great first impression right off the get go for this year. So can't wait to see more from them. I know men's golf has always been really, really good. And I think Coach Crooks is going to have them and the ladies team working hard this year to make sure their dominance on whatever conference golf they're going to be at still stands. So it's going to be good to see from them. Next one, men's tennis was at the UNC Greensboro Invite. Came out with 13 singles wins and 8 doubles wins, and found this impressive stat: 12-0 against Coastal Carolina and Davidson, which is always good to see. So congratulations to men's tennis on that great time at the UNCG Invite and going 12-0 against 2 good schools in tennis. So can't wait to see more from them. And then women's golf, like I alluded to mention, they were at the Red Raider Invitational, which has a lot of good teams. Texas Tech obviously hosting, Iowa, UTEP, Princeton, Cincinnati, along with some other ones. And Campbell finished third. Team overall finished third, with the top Campbell finishing tied for 8th at -1. Isabella Haney being the top Camel amongst a lot of Red Raiders. So good to see them. That's always a tough tournament to be at with some good schools, and Campbell being right up there at the top. So congratulations to women's golf and congratulations to Isabella for being the top Campbell finisher. And then we'll move on to women's soccer. Women's soccer had 2 games this week. Tough week for them. I think it started off really good with a 2-2 draw or 2-2 tie against third ranked in the conference, William Mary at William Mary. Goals galore at that game. So good to see them, and then it kind of ended off on a sadder note, taking the loss 1-0 at College of Charleston, which is a tough drive 3 days later down to Charleston after you went to William and Mary. That's kind of the ebbs and flows of the CEA until we get into it more. So can't wait to see what women's soccer is going to do and see what happens with the CAA. Hopefully we can pull out some more wins and ties, but just knocking on the door of some wins against the top echelon of the CAA. So a lot of Campbell sports happening this week, kind of all over the across the board, and a lot to come this weekend.
Yep, especially for the Sockers, it just seems to be a matter of finishing at the end of the games. A lot of close games, a lot of draws, and one goal losses. But definitely, middle of the season, a chance to bounce back and get ahead there. Dylan, I just want to say that my fantasy team is not doing very good. They're 0-3, but they had a players only meeting this week. So hopefully everybody in the Orange and Black Fantasy League, they're gonna make a comeback. You are, let's see where you are.
Yeah,
you're tied for third, so you're 1-2. I'm the
yeah.
only team that has not won a game yet. So
Yeah, I think shout out to Alex also being a great Campbell supporter and very active on the Just chat. So shout out to him. But Andrew can what I mean, I was facing Tyreek Hill. Like this is one of those things where it's like I didn't have a Dolphin to play with. I had Patrick Mahomes, and he had the Taylor Swift effect, I guess. But I didn't have Travis Kelce, so I guess I missed the mark on that one. But hopefully we could turn it around here, Andrew, and get you a win this week. But I'm looking at your team here, and I have one problem. I might be the fact that you're starting Justin Fields. Like, can we have a conversation about that?
fantasy is about getting rushing touchdowns from your quarterback, and I'm betting on that. I would also like Saquon Barkley to not get injured every other season.
I mean, I know Joe Burrow is having a struggle year, which is going to break a lot of people's hearts. I was thinking about drafting him in my fantasy league until I came to the brutal realization that he got hurt, and then the whole like hurt just Joe Burrow thing. I mean, like, you have Brock Purdy. Go get Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's really good.
Might have to hit the trade.
Yeah. Hit the
trade
trades.
block, but we'll see what that holds for us. But Dylan, even though the Camels lost on Saturday in football, it could be a lot worse. Could be Broncos fans and get beat 70-20. So our defense, just don't do that, please. If that happens, we probably won't record a podcast.
Yeah, we will take. I think we'll both agree we'll take a break from that week, and we'll come back and we'll just wipe it off the slate. But I don't think we're going to do that against NC Central. No offense to NC Central. They are not the Miami Dolphins, and they don't have the world's fastest wide receiver. And Tyreek Hill.
I sure hope not.
Yeah, let's hope not. I might eat these words, and these words might end up on a old takes exposed, but I don't think so. I think it'll be a very decent game for the Camels, and I think they're going to be hungry to go into Durham and make this a game. And NC Central, yeah, they're coming off some good wins. Obviously the loss at UCLA. That's just UCLA, and that's just unfortunate. But I think they're going to want to prove a point. They're going to want to get back on track, and I think Mentor's going to have a team ready to go. And I think the number one key is let's get the rushing offense back. Let's get it to Rodgers having 100 and some odd yards. Because I mean, Malik, even though I want to call him Campbell Superman, he can't do it all by himself. You can't rely on the pass because you're going to have 3 interception Malik, and that's just not fair to him. So I think if we can get the rushing attack back and make it a very even rushing attack, passing attack, and Hodgman can kind of choose what he wants to do. And I think this game's going to get very, very interesting if we can get that ball rolling. And please, 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 for the love of God, just stop the run. Please stop the run. Just 1 week, stop the run. I beg.
Yeah, Dylan, last week I predicted a offensive shootout. You predicted a defensive battle. You got the better end of that deal. What do you see happening this week? And do you see it being a close game?
Let's get the guns out because it's gonna be a Big 12 shootout. Offensive galore. I think the offense is gonna want to come out and get into the 41 point territory. And NC Central is going to be thinking the same way. They got a point to prove too, because if you look at their schedule, and how tough the FCS has been in terms of being like the polling. I mean, Western Carolina just got into the poll this week, and this has been a couple weeks after they beat Sanford, and they've had decent wins backing it up. So, I think the FCS.
RIP Charleston Southern.
Yeah, RIP Charleston Southern. They got broncoed there. So but shout out to the Charleston Southern Buccaneers faithful. They were really nice people. Love those guys on Twitter. So pray for their souls this week. So they're finally getting in. So NC Central's got to prove their ranking this week. Otherwise they might get dropped out. And so I think Campbell is going to want to yank that ranking from them and make it getting votes back and getting them talking. And like you said, if we can get past NC Central, that schedule for the next 3 weeks looks very winnable with some games against Hampton and Maine and Richmond. So if you can get it right against NC Central, I think the road gets easier, and then the road hypes up with the Carolina game and the Delaware game, and NC-A&T kind of finish it off. And like you said, CAA is wide open, so you never know.
Give me all the offense on Saturday. Speaking of all the offense, is it even a coincidence that Julian Hill gets his first action with the Miami Dolphins, and they drop
Tua, throw the ball better. He was open.
He was
open. Tua, come on, Tua, please.
But Julian Hill gets his first action with the Miami Dolphins, and they drop a 70 burger. So the key to success is Julian Hill at the tight end position. And like you mentioned, Julian Hill was open, and I guess Tua was just tired of throwing touchdowns because he overshot him. But good to see him get some action in the NFL. And, that makes 2 Camels this year who have seen some action in NFL games. And like we talked about, it's just kind of the next man up mentality and who is going to be next to make it to the major league level of whatever respective sport. Allen Winans got another shot to pitch with the Braves over the weekend. And as they head into postseason play, you have some injuries there on that pitching staff, so maybe he can slot in and be one of the guys for a Braves team that is definitely going to be contending for the title in the MLB this season, along with Cedric Mullins, who's with the Orioles, and in that race, and Ryan Thompson, who is with the D-backs, who are still fighting in that wild card contention. So definitely something to keep an eye on there. A lot of pro humps action. You love to see it. Can never get old. As we move forward, we'll continue our coverage with football every week, but we're going to start previewing some basketball content. We're going to have head coach Kevin McGeehan of the men's basketball team on sometime soon to preview the season. Both the men and women had their first official team practices of the season this week. So basketball is coming soon. That is less than 50 days away. So exciting times there. We'll talk with Coach McGeehan and preview the season there. And as we get closer to the season, we'll gear up for that even more and get you ready for the season opener against Navy. That game is at home. So another season of basketball is quickly approaching. Dylan, do you have any final thoughts for us before we sign off?
I just want to say, Braves are not between this, so go ahead and cut it at Braves. We, the Campbell Nation, would love Alan Winans to have a appearance 2, 3, 4, 5 in the playoffs. We have Cedric Mullins, yes, but we are greedy Campbell fans. We want Alan Winans to start a playoff game when you guys are dubbing up whoever you're playing. When you're 3 up and Alan Winans takes them out and clinches the series. So we are greedy Campbell fans. Alan, please start Alan Winans. Thank you.
You heard it here first, Braves. The ball is in your court. Put Alan Winans on your playoff roster and let's get this thing going. Unfortunately, Zach Neto, the Angels are just kind of struggling a little bit, but overall, he had a great season. He took the MLB by storm. Mama Neto definitely took the MLB by storm whenever
MVP.
he hit that home run the other week. And she's always been awesome. And she's definitely a huge supporter on Twitter. So we're very happy for her and for Zach as well. But just a lot of exciting stuff happening with all of our pro humps. And we'll continue to keep an eye on that as we move into the baseball postseason and as we continue the NFL season. But thanks everybody for listening to another week. Dylan, thanks for hopping on. Everybody have a good one and go Camels.